Daisy Campos and Pierre Loubet. Oh, I'm missing one. Pierre, Daisy, Joanna, right? And Bridget. So if you guys could all give us a little wave, there you go. We'll know who you are. I'm Stacy.
I'll say hello.
I'm the chair, and our vice chair, Dave Elliott, is not here today, but hopefully we'll get to meet in person soon.
Stacy, I barely hear you.
Oh, thanks. Dang it. I'm having a hell of a time with my sound lately.
Dennis, is that you now?
This is Robert Ruiz.
Ah, hi, Robert. Welcome.
Morning.
Good morning.
All right, does that give us a quorum? With Robert? Excellent.
Yes.
All right, can you hear me okay?
A little
All right,
weak,
good.
but
Sorry. I'll try to talk loudly. Okay, so good morning and thank you for attending. For those of you who didn't hear, we are welcoming 4 new board members today. In my louder voice, I want to welcome Daisy, Pierre, Joanna, and Bridget. Thank you for your willingness to join the board. All right, let's start with roll call, please.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, it looks like you're recording too. I apologize, I forgot about that.
That's okay. We're good to go.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. Ignacio Alegre.
Here.
Bren Bisley.
Here.
Simon Gonzalez.
Here.
Jack Haley.
Here.
Maria Rosa Lopez.
Here.
Robert Ruiz.
Here.
Stacy Sanchez.
Here.
Christine Snapper.
here.
Robert Tucker.
Bob,
Bob. Robert Tucker. Here.
Yeah, here.
Bridget Kavanaugh.
here.
Johanna Rivera.
Here.
Daisy Campos.
Here.
And Pierre Loubet.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Great, thank you. And if you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Just look where you think there's a flag and we'll begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of
of
the
America.
United States of America and to the
The
republic
for which it
for
stands,
which it stands, one
a
nation
nation under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
It's a little like when you try to sing happy birthday on Zoom. It's sort of everybody's a little. Okay, do we have anybody waiting for public comments? Nobody in the waiting room?
No, not at this time.
All right. All right. We are going to move straight into our consent calendar. We have 3 items on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
That's Brent. Second by Bob. Thank you. And again, we just approved our 4 new board members as part of that consent calendar. Just to draw your attention to that. We don't usually go through each item, just cover it in one big motion. On our business calendar today, we are going to approve the regional and unified local workforce plan for program year. I'm going to just want to go through a couple of these things because it's really all one issue, in that we're going to approve the regional and unified local plan, authorize the chair of the Workforce Development Board to sign all documents, recommend that the city council approve and authorize the mayor to sign the documents, and authorize staff to make non-substantive changes to the plan based on the public comment period and or as requested amongst the members of the plan. The public comment period is open, and I'm gonna add the local area subsequent designation and local board recertification for a 2-year period to be part of all these actions, right? Can I get one motion on that, Deborah? Is that correct?
And I so move.
So Brent made a first to combine the two items into one motion.
Correct, thank you. And then we'll have Deborah give us a little oversight. If I could get a second?
Second, Maria Rosa Lopez.
Maria, that was Maria on a second.
I'm sorry, who motion?
Maria,
Brent?
Maria Lopez.
Okay,
Brent,
Brent, and then second, Maria. Thank you.
That's correct. All right, before we have our vote, Deborah, if you could just give us a little overview of that.
Yes, every 4 years, the Workforce Investment Act requires each local and region to prepare a 4-year plan. The cycle has come up, and now's the time to do it. The state is asking us to submit it by March 31st. Anaheim, Santa Ana, and the County of Orange Workforce Development Board staff have been working on this since early this year and are presenting it for your review and permission to submit. The state did their plan last spring. Actually, they wrote it winter of 19, so it was before the pandemic. We were directed to respond to our plan reflective of what the state submitted. Department of Labor was not willing to let the state modify its plan to reflect COVID and the COVID environment that we're now living in. And likewise, the state wasn't able to give us much leeway, but we did. I thought if you had a chance to peruse it, I thought we did a good job of weaving in some of the COVID impact to our county in the plan. So we acknowledged it and kept a lot of the elements from our last plan, meaning that the 4 industries are still the primary industries for Orange County: advanced manufacturing, healthcare, retail, hospitality, and tourism, albeit it's taken a huge hit because of the pandemic. And then digital media, IT as our 4 strong industries. We're also getting a little bit closer and aligning on the economic studies and the education that is going on with our K through 12 and our community colleges. Those 4 strategies are also woven into the community colleges strategies based on data from EDD. And we're looking to do more on-the-job training, incumbent worker training, to take the entry-level job workers and build that career pathway so that they can grow in their industry into a more livable wage. One of the studies that we found is in order to live in Orange County for a family of 2, which isn't necessarily realistic, it should be a family of 4 or more, but a family of 2, you need about a $23 an hour job at minimum to make it here in the county. So, that's high when you have a lot of your workers working at entry level, $15, $14 an hour jobs. You definitely need 2 incomes just to get to beyond that $23 an hour job. So the regional plan is looking at the entire region, and the local unified plan just digs deeper into the regional plan and identifying major partners and how we're going to work together over the next 4 years. We held 7 study sessions, community engagement meetings during the month of January with our partners such as EDD, Department of Rehab, Social Services, the K through 12 and community college, as well as our CalFresh. I know they're part of Social Services, but also CalFresh, and our non-custodial parent programs and English language learner programs. A lot of discussion almost in every conversation, better connections of referrals and having a warmer handoff versus a piece of paper, handing them over, referring them to each other. That brought us to look closer at how to use CalJobs, because that is at least our common database that we use, and trying to give them access to the nonprofits in our community colleges. Anyone can have access to CalJobs, and using the referral form that is in the CalJobs system. So we are going to look at that more seriously this coming year so that we can try and have a better tracking mechanism of that referral and then what the outcome was of that referral. Did they show up? how many attempts were made by staff on either side to try and reach the person, or then the person said, I don't want to work with you guys. But at least have that knowledge of what's going on with that referral. It is out for public comment. That public comment period ends April 2nd. If there are any substantive comments or substantially negative comments, by law, I'm required to bring it back to you, but we're asking for your permission to submit, barring any substantive comments that come in, so that we can submit it to the state by the end of April. And then we take it to our respective elective bodies, which for us, the city council, and then have the mayor sign it at the very end. Talking about the recertification of the board, every 2 years, we have to recertify our workforce development board, telling the state that we meet the various categories. The workforce development board for our new folks is primarily 51% must be from the private sector. And then the balance is made up from respective partners such as social services, EDD, Department of Rehab. We need to have 15 to 20% representation of our labor unions in Orange County. So the Orange County Labor Federation makes nominations of our labor and or nonprofit organizations and our K through 12s. So Santa Ana's board is 24 seats. We do have a couple vacancies, so I'm still recruiting for our private sector, but I can still submit to the state with those vacancies on hand. And we are certified for 2 years. So we do that every 2 years. And that time of year is this season. Any questions? Thank you. If you do want, you could go online to read the plan. I think we sent you the link as well. It is substantially shorter than our previous plan. That was a couple hundred pages. So the state did pare down their questions, and we encouraged the two ladies that were actively writing it for us to be succinct. So 24 pages and whatnot on the other one. I was happy to see that. And then we have attachments, but you can read that for those that really want to read all the exhibits.
There you go. It's some good information. It's in your packet as well. Okay. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, our motion passes. That's really the end of our business calendar. We do have a work study session today. Jesse Green-
Stacy, sorry, we do have one more, number 5, the local area subsequent
Oh, so
designation.
sorry. Thank you so much.
I thought she combined the two. Wait,
Oh, wait, no, I combined the two, the authorization of the chair. So it was one motion for both items. Thanks. Thought, okay. End of our business calendar. And I don't see Jesse on the, am I? just
Jesse's
missing it?
here. Jesse's
Oh,
here
okay,
for me.
good.
She's under Bianca's screen.
Okay.
Jesse Creek.
All righty. Well, Jesse is going to lead us in our work study session. Ready, Jesse? Oh, there.
Yes, I'm ready.
You're the co-host, Jesse, so you can share the screen.
Wonderful. Good morning.
Morning.
So,
Morning.
I'm going to give you all a little bit of a warning, I guess. Of course, as Murphy's Law would depict, they are doing massive construction and tearing the street up right in front of my house this morning. So I'm hoping you can't hear all the loud construction that's happening. If it gets particularly bad, let me know and I'll see what I can do. But otherwise, I'm happy to present some information with you today. So let me share my screen. All right, are you all seeing the slides?
Yes.
Yes? All right. So just as a reminder to folks, I am unable to see the chat while I'm sharing my screen. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will have a Q&A at the end. I'm normally would entertain questions throughout the presentation, but this is kind of a lot of dense information. So I'm going to ask if you can either put them in the chat or jot them down, and we'll get to them at the end. And then we will go from there. Also, just keep in mind, I can't really see your faces while I'm sharing my screen as well, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that the board folks can kind of help facilitate if I need to pause or stop, that you'll just all let me know. So welcome. My name is Jessie Creed. As you see, I am the director for the Orange County Center of Excellence. We are hosted at the Rancho Santiago Community College District. So just around the corner from you, when we're all actually in our offices. And so what we do at the Center of Excellence is we provide the labor market information for the community colleges in Orange County. There are 9 centers of excellence throughout the state. We are funded by the California Community College Chancellor's Office and support, like I said, all of the community colleges throughout the whole state. So while I'm hosted at Rancho and I love being there and that's my home, my role is to serve all 9 community colleges within Orange County, as well as the North Orange Continuing Education, the standalone non-credit institute. So I just wanted to let you know that my background that I'm coming from and the kind of, it will be education, but I'm going to be doing my best to share information with you from a lot of our partners today. So about almost a year ago, if you can all believe that, we went into lockdown, and the workforce development boards reached out to Gustavo Chamorro, Dr. Gustavo Chamorro, whom some of you may know. He's also with the community colleges, and I work very closely with him. He's the director for the Orange County colleges for the LA Orange County Regional Consortium. And they said, what are we going to do? We need to know how to help our region. How do we help Orange County get back to where we need to go? And this was way before we knew this was going to last a year. I think at that point we were still hoping like maybe summer. So they reached out to me, as my role is to provide labor market information, and said, Jessie, would you be willing to kind of lead this effort and help us figure this out? We really want research to be the core of what we're doing. And I said, I'd absolutely be happy to do that. But the work that the Centers of Excellence do is kind of a niche, if you will, within the whole economic fields. I'm not an economist. I don't have the experience or the training to, in my opinion, put out a forecast that I would feel confident in, that I would want to be able to share with everybody. So I said, we need to get other folks on board. So the 3 workforce development boards, myself, we reached out to the EDD. So Maritza Gamboa was part of our group. Many people are part of our group, but as part of the researchers. And then we had Cal State Fullerton's Dr. Anil Puri, and then Dr. Robert Kleinhens. And the 3 of them, myself, and then Jacob Poor, who's my research analyst, we became the core of the research arm of the Orange County Economic Recovery Strategy. And what the idea was we were going to make a collaborative group with the workforce development boards, these other institutions, industry, social services, and try to come up with an idea of a plan to say, okay, how do we get Orange County back to where we need to go? And the first thing we needed to do was take a look at our at the data, what's happening in Orange County right now. So that's really what we're going to talk about. We did a full presentation, a much longer presentation, March 5th, that had EDD and others presenting as well. And I believe Deborah shared that slide deck. This is pretty much the same slide deck, just with a few pulled out. So you should all have access to this. I'm happy to share this deck as well. You'll also all have access, if you don't already, to the full report. So I'm going to go through a little bit quickly through it and hope that we can then get to some questions. So I kind of summarized already what our mission was and what we were going to do. These were just kind of an example of the organization. So as you can see, we had a lot of education. We had different industry folks, different social services, the chambers were involved. We really got a great cross section of people, which I was really proud about. I think that the 2 things that I'm most proud about in this report is the collaborative piece, and that we did this together from planning all the way through, as well as because we had so many different researchers involved, I feel like the information got vetted and validated in a really powerful way. So I'm excited about that as well. So as you heard me mention, we had 3 teams. The first was this research team, that's who I explained who we were. I asked Dr. Anil Puri from Cal State Fullerton to co-lead that team with me, and he graciously accepted, even though he's one of those people that I think is amazing. So I didn't feel worthy to co-lead with him, but it was such an honor. We had this amazing economic recovery team, which was really the industry representatives, the Chamber of Commerce, EDD was a part of that. I should also mention here, the workforce development boards were a part of all 3. They were embedded in all of them. And then we had the workforce development team, which was really kind of more the social services. The development boards led that team along with Gustavo Chamorro. That was the education. So the idea here is the research team's going to figure out what's going on. What did Orange County look like pre-COVID, during COVID, and where do we think we're going to go based off the data? The economic recovery team was going to find out from industry, how are they being impacted? What do they need to survive through this pandemic? And then the workforce development team was looking at the workers. How do we get workers back into jobs? So those were our 3 pieces. And I'm pointing them out because you'll see that as the theme. It's how we organize the report. It's how I'm organized this presentation as well. So the first section we're going to talk about is the research, since we really wanted to make sure the research was the basis for everything that we did. So I know it's a little early, so bear with me as we dive right into numbers. But the first thing we wanted to take a look at was the population and demographics in Orange County. We kind of started at the basics, which, if we look at where we were at, Orange County's population is projected to steadily yet slowly grow through 2060, as you can see in the slides. However, there's going to be a rapid shift in demographics so Orange County in general is going to projected to become older, which you alluded to earlier in your regional plan. It's also predicted to be more Hispanic and less white. So you'll see that when we get into some of the demographics earlier on. And let me turn on my little laser pointer guy so I can show you that later. Okay, so these are the actual demographics by race and ethnicity. So you're going to see here on the left is 2019. So here's the Hispanic as of 2019 population was 35%. And you can see by 2060, it's projected to become 43%. Followed by Asians. So as far as growth, 21% to 35%. Here's that constriction that we mentioned. The 40% of the white population is going to be decreasing by 23%. So again, this is just kind of some basic information. This is the age and educational attainment that I mentioned as well. So you can see that the orange lines are the 2019 estimates versus the 2060 projections are the blue bars below that. So you can see where we have more people in these middle ages now, but that's going to constrict as we get to 2060 versus you're going to see the older population outpace by a considerable amount here from where we're at in 2019. So I think that's very telling. And then you can see on the educational attainment as well, it's the exact same thing. This is compared to Orange County to California though. So this is where we were at through 2018. So you can kind of see that we're pretty spread out. Orange County tends to be a little more educated than California as a state, which is, we pretty much know that, but everywhere else we're pretty much on par. So that's kind of what our population looks like as we move into the pre-pandemic employment. So what we wanted to do when we're looking at this, you always want to take a look at before your big hits to try to see where we were at and what our patterns were. So you can kind of see in here that we had the Great Recession. Prior to the Great Recession, we had peaked at around 1.7 million in 2006. And then the jobs didn't return until about 2015 to that level. This is that Great Recession where we had that really big dip. But we've had 10 years of growth, which I'm sure you've all heard over the last year, until 2019, where we were at 1.85 million jobs. So this was a really robust economy, was being the operative word there. So now this is looking at the non-farm jobs, so actual employment. And again, what you're going to see is this is the impact of COVID. So we're looking from January 2019 all the way through December of 2020. And what you're seeing is that there was this really steep, widespread decline. And, that was really in alignment with the stay-at-home orders. You'll also see some dips that we start rising up again, and then we have more stay-at-home orders and we see these dips again. That's not surprising news to you. I'm sure you're going to see that theme throughout the rest of the slides and the information. But the big piece here to know is that we actually dropped between April here and this February drop. That was almost 16% of a drop. And we kept decreasing until about May. We jumped up, and then we dropped down again, and then we slowly kept going up. So all in all, when all was done, I want to say we were at, I think it was about 0.5% of a decrease from November to December. So we're slowing down considerably, but we're still recovering, and we're not going to be back to this pre-COVID information for a little bit later, but we'll talk about that moving forward. This is also a look at it from an industry perspective. So again, this is that February, this is the year. You can see each of these industries here. These are the 6 industries that really showed the steepest decline. It's done by months. And what you're going to notice again is this is going to coincide with the stay-at-home orders. Not surprising, our leisure and hospitality took a massive hit. We knew that. It's also one of the ones that has not recovered yet. Versus some of the others, manufacturing, for example, it took a bit of a hit, and it's kind of slowly been increasing, but it hasn't been that bad. Three of these industries, leisure, hospitality, healthcare, and social assistance, and retail trade here, they accounted for 60% of all the job losses in Orange County from February to April. Interestingly, they only accounted for 35% of all jobs in 2019. So even though they were most hit, it wasn't the biggest proportion of jobs in Orange County, but it was still a third. So it's significant. So let's take a look at what this looks like on the percentage of jobs lost. So again, this is kind of like your zero line, and this is how many jobs have been lost. And basically across all of the non-farm industries, only 53.4% have been recovered. 2 industries, transportation and warehousing, you can see them up here, and construction, they've actually recovered jobs. So they're over 100%. You can see that. Transportation, warehousing, huge. Not probably surprising considering that so much shopping and things went online. So this included, a lot of goods being driven back and forth, being delivered. There was a lot kind of packed into this industry. I'm assuming that this group is at least semi-familiar with the WARN notices that are submitted to EDD. Basically, this is if you have a business of 75 or more employees, if you are going to be laying off 50 or more of them during a 30-day period, you're required by California Labor Code to let EDD know. And then that's to be able to try to help mitigate the number of employees that will be out of work. Traditionally, you have to give a 60 days notice. That was waived during COVID. And as of right now, that condition is still waived. We tracked these on a weekly basis. It was the only way to get kind of real life data, if you will, real time labor market information. For those of you that aren't aware, it's really based off past trends. So it's very difficult to see exactly what's happening right in that moment. So this gave us a flavor, and you can kind of see that we had these huge spikes of layoffs and closures. This is the actual number of layoff and closures that were reported. This is the number of employees. So they correspond to one another. But this February, March, just these massive spikes and then huge drops, and then they kind of lay off. For comparison, I just wanted to point out that prior to February 2020, for the entire year prior to that, there were a total of 5 WARN notices submitted in Orange County. So you can see to go from that to over 120, in a month, and having that affect over 20,000 employees, that's significant. It's also important to notice that 68% of all of the notices were for temporary. So you see these big red lines up here on top, as opposed to permanent. So one of the things we saw is Disney. They had their massive layoffs, but they've also just announced that they're bringing a lot of people back. So we don't have exact numbers yet, And just because a company brings somebody back, it doesn't mean that they go back and retroactively remove the notice. The notice still stays there. So it's not, we can't use the notices as a one-for-one of letting us know what exactly jobs were lost, but it gives us an idea of where was hit the most. You'll also see kind of the ups and downs here, and those correspond directly to the stay-at-home orders that kept getting kind of restricted again. Okay. So jumping into the impacts of COVID pandemic unemployment rate. So this is really looking at the rates. We have Orange County here, this is California, and this is the US as comparison. This is not seasonally adjusted. And again, you can go from February, we had this really historic low of 2.8 to April, where we skyrocketed to 13.8 with a high of 14.7 here in May. We've dropped, came up a little bit here in December. 7.4, we actually stayed at 7.4 in January, so we're still hovering around here. But again, as I mentioned earlier, across all non-farm jobs, we've only recovered about 53.4%. So we still have kind of a long way to go here. Unemployment insurance claims, again, you're going to see a lot of symmetry, you know, in this data that I'm showing you. So the number of weekly claims in insurance, they were relatively flat between January and mid-March, and then they increased exponentially during the week between March 28th, or the week that ended March 28th, excuse me, and by 86,000 claims. Okay, this is showing by age group. So one of the things that you're going to see is that the people that were hit the most tended to be younger folks and the oldest folks, and as well as those kind of in their early careers. So you're going to see that when you look at these slides. The other thing you're going to see is that folks with the lower levels of educational attainment were hit hardest. A lot of folks that had kind of more the professional jobs that typically require a higher level of education were able to convert to working at home. This is the educational attainment that I just mentioned. So again, this is the high school diploma that was hit significantly. The others, not as much. The higher you get up in your degrees, you can see the less they were impacted. So one of the reports that the Orange County Center of Excellence, we did as a companion to this, we actually issued this as a separate report, but it was designed with the intention of always being included in the overarching Orange County Economic Recovery Strategy. It was called our Resilient Jobs Report. And I'm not going to go into it in a whole heck of a lot of detail here because you can read it. Again, the salient points of it are in OCERS, plus you'll have access to the link on where you can get the full report in and of itself. But basically, we identified 92 recession resilient industries. We did that by comparing the Great Recession data with where we are at now. Some of those examples were higher education, engineering services, insurance brokers, et cetera. At the community college, when we look at the living wage, which was mentioned earlier, we tend to look at a single adult. So it's not that two-person or with a child. And the data that we used at this time was 1736. So that's the living wage benchmark we were using. I will tell you that the new numbers have come out, and the living wage for the single person has gone up $2 in Orange County. So it's actually $19.35. So if we ran this again, we'd have a different slate of industries and jobs that would account for this. So again, you're going to see those recession resilient, those are those 92, were considerably more, had higher employment change versus the non-recession resilient. They grew by actually 71%, while the others actually declined by 1%. We looked at jobs more closely than we looked at industries for this report. So we really were looking at those recession resilient jobs that had a better than average change in employment during and after the recession. And then when we applied the methodology of what made those successful to the current occupations to try to take a look to see what we thought would apply. So interestingly, only 35 of over 800 occupations met the recession resilient requirement. And they were traditionally things like management analysts, registered nurses, software developers, human resource specialists, etc. I'm not going to go into this slide in detail. It's really difficult to read, but I wanted to give you an example of the types of recession and pandemic jobs. So these are the ones that met both the recession and the pandemic criteria. Their pandemic criteria were jobs that during the pandemic had at least 100 or more postings for jobs each month during the course of the pandemic. So of all of the, again, over 800, there were only 19 that met both the recession and the pandemic requirement. And you'll see that they go everywhere from a high school diploma educational attainment, which is this farm tech, all the way up to doctoral and professional degrees. So huge gamut. We include the entry-level wages as well as the median wages, which you can take a look at. 11 of these 19 are middle skilled jobs, which means you don't actually need like a bachelor's degree or higher. It's often some college, which was interesting. And I think that's really where the community colleges can really help support the workforce. So again, as I mentioned, only 19 are considered recession pandemic. All of the occupations typically require at least some type of higher education, but not necessarily a 4-year. We recommended that training providers should consider focusing on existing programs that train for pandemic resilient occupations to meet that short-term need. So that's one of the pieces that we've talked about with the other research group, the other teams as part of a CERS. How do we get workers, that are at the one-stops and things to these training programs? And then looking for occupations that are going to be considered helping students for the long term. Maybe they take a little more training. Dr. Neil Puri and his team at Cal State Fullerton did a forecast for us, and they are predicting that we will be Q4 of 2021 for us to hit a 4.8% unemployment rate. That is still almost double what we were at in Q4 of 2019, which was the last full quarter before COVID hit. This has been updated since the fall, and that at that point, they expected us to be at 4.5. So our recovery is a little slower than they had anticipated, but we're still on track. So it's really going to depend on how quickly we're able to open up, basically at this point. I do want to just do a quick plug for those of you that don't know. On April 20th, Dr. Puri will be doing an updated forecast as part of the Cal State Fullerton spring forecast. So the link for that, if you're interested, is in the slides. It's free. It will be virtual online. And he and Dr. Farka, who present this information, are wonderful if you've not heard them. So the economic recovery strategy, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. This was the industry group, if you remember, and what they wanted to do was a business survey that would go out to all of the businesses, or as many as we could get to in Orange County, to really understand how they've been impacted. So the County of Orange was the one that actually conducted the survey, but it was administered by the Orange County Center of Excellence. So we worked with them on the questions. We sent out the surveys via anonymous links. The workforce development boards, many of the other agencies and groups sent this out. So we don't have an actual count of how many it went to, but we know it went to thousands of businesses. And we received about 433 responses. So it was a pretty robust survey. I was really happy with the number of responses considering how robust it was. There was single selection, multiple choice, Likert scales, but there was a lot of write-in and we had a lot of qualitative data. So as you can see here that we had a lot of industries were represented. I'll talk about what the other comprised of in the next slide, but basically 61% or 61 of the businesses were in accommodation and food services, followed by 52 in healthcare and social assistance. Then 42 in professional services, 36 in nonprofit. So it was a pretty big group. The majority of the respondents were small businesses, pretty small actually. However, the number of years in operation were pretty great. So that's important to keep in mind when I tell you about the results. I do want to just let you know that the other group that you saw in there, those tended to be the professional services, which are things like manicurists, nail salons, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a big lump. The key findings of this survey were basically that, not surprising, 76% of the businesses felt they'd been negatively impacted. 92% of the respondents stated that there was a major or moderate decline in business or sales, and 63% of businesses anticipate that they're going to have to or will have had to lay off employees. I should mention as well that this survey was conducted between September 4th and October 3rd of last year, so right before the last quarter. Oops. So again, this is kind of what we just talked about a minute ago with the how many businesses thought they were affected. You'll see that we asked them to do major problem, moderate problem, minimal problem. And these decline in business sales, not having enough funds to pay their employees, difficult paying rents, those types of things were the biggest issues for the businesses that responded. Sustainability was pretty massive. 280 respondents estimate that they can sustain their business for less than a year. Which that's significant when you consider that the majority of the respondents said that they had been in business for 11 years or more. So that's telling. These aren't new businesses that are saying they're going to shut down. These are established businesses. That's a big deal for us in Orange County. As far as the length of time to return to pre-COVID levels, a lot of them are saying that it's probably going to be a year or more, but there was still a good 6% that didn't know that they'd be able to get there. When we asked how the county could, and partnering agencies could help them recover, the biggest thing we saw was offering tax credits. We heard a lot that folks were unable to, even with deferments, that was not going to be helpful because they weren't going to necessarily recover their lost sales. So just delaying the bills wasn't going to help them. Oh, I guess that was it there. Okay. The workforce recovery, this work is really ongoing. So this is what the workforce development boards are working with the colleges, and they're really trying to figure out how to support each other's services, how to direct folks that are unemployed or looking to maybe change industries, occupations into some of these workforce opportunities that we've talked about. How do we get them partnered with the right training? How do we help them get through this quickly? How do we give them the services that they need? So this work is still happening. It was going to take a lot longer, as Deborah alluded to earlier, even that CalJobs piece of sharing that information. It just takes a while to go through a lot of that. So that work is ongoing. They're still a part of that. Deborah is still a part of this work group as well. The recommendations, I'm not going to go over them in too much detail, but basically it's, let's provide that economic assistance to affected businesses. Let's make sure that we have funding opportunities available of a variety of different kinds. We need to help conduct advocacy efforts on behalf of the business community. So, partnering with a lot of different agencies to make sure that their voices are being heard and that they're getting the support that they need from all different levels of government. Partnering with the workforce development boards and other training providers to really help provide services for those displaced workers as quickly as possible. Focusing on training and education programs that provide career ladders and short-term training. What we don't want to do is take folks that lost their jobs in mass quantities and put them right back into a situation where that could potentially happen again. So if folks want to change positions, we want to be able to help them do that. How do we help them utilize the skills that they already have or potentially already gained and leverage those into other pathways if that's what they want to do? As long as we know what those pathways are, like I said, through the Resilient Jobs Report. So I know I went through this really fast. It is so much data. It's really heavy. I apologize for that. I'm trying to honor your time and some room for questions. You'll have the full report. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to stop sharing so I can actually see all your lovely faces. Let me see how do I stop sharing? No, stop share. There it is.
Thank you. And you said you were going to send that slide deck to all of us, correct?
Yes, I have the slide deck here ready to send out to you all so you can look at it further, and the links are live so you can go deeper on certain screens that you wish to pursue, as well as the information for Dr. Puri's economic report in April. And that's a big thing because usually you have to pay for those, and those are usually $75 to $150. So this last year and a half, we've been able to sit in on some pretty good seminars that we would normally have to pay.
No, you're right.
Any questions or any information that I can?
I have a question. How do you see Orange County labor unions being a partner? I didn't see that listed in your presentation, but do you see us as a partner in going forward and helping? And what is your vision with labor?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I personally could answer the question as to what my vision would be for the OCERS. I feel like that's kind of a bigger thing, but I do think in many ways that the unions would be a part of this, both from a training perspective, how to, making sure that there's clear pathways to get folks trained and into roles and jobs, partnering with the folks that are trying to get people into work. I think that's going to be a huge piece, right? We know a lot of the union jobs, as we saw, construction was one of the two that really actually did very well during this time. So there's a lot of unions in construction, a lot of unions all over the place. Obviously, the unions that are in the retail, hospitality, tourism industry, that's been hit really hard. So, working with them to also see how do we help their folks and what that looks like. But yeah, I absolutely see that they should be a part of that group. I think maybe one of the things that I can do is with the workforce recovery team that is still ongoing, is make the recommendation that they reach out to union folks. So I don't think that we had any at the table.
I just wrote a note down to include Orange County Labor Fed. Would that be the appropriate point to represent the trades or the unions?
That would be a good start.
Yeah, this is Robert. You can reach out to the OC Labor Fed, but you could also reach to Ernesto Medrano from the building trades as well.
Okay.
Great question.
Will do, and we'll have them bring them to the fold to work on this as well. Thank you. I just want to make a comment on Warren's. While her report, or the report indicated about 120 businesses, at the beginning of the pandemic, things happened so fast and so swift. Companies and human resource staff were just having to shed employees, by the hour swiftly, that doing a Warren notice to the state of California was not a priority for those HR personnel. So I feel that number is probably only a third or a tip of the iceberg of what really took place in Orange County. Because for Carlos and I sitting here those first few days, we were just watching industries disappear by the hour. And knowing that each company that closed or industry that shut down, that was hundreds or thousands of workers that were being told to stay home. And many of them didn't draw a paycheck. Because then we started getting the reverse of everyone's calling to find out how to file for unemployment insurance. So even the state couldn't keep up with all the Warren notices. So I feel that number is a number underrepresentation of what took place.
I think that's fair. The 120 was for like each month, and that was the number of single claims. And I will say, every time we got claims, there were multitudes that were retroactive, even up until a month or so. Interestingly, this past month, February, there were only 3 claims submitted in all of Orange County, and I believe 2 of them were retroactive. So it's definitely slowing down, but I agree, it's more than likely a low number.
Deborah, I could just add from social services, when we saw that initial drop in employment for the county, social services obviously saw a dramatic increase in applications for benefits such as CalFresh and Medi-Cal. And so it climbed dramatically daily in terms of the number of applications that were coming through the system for assistance. And then again, as jobs are coming back up, of course, we see a decline, but it's still pretty high in comparison to pre-COVID. So, some of the other impacts for us is obviously when individuals are not working, we also, have childcare allocations that we're not spending, right? Because individuals are not working. And so we saw a dramatic, just a change in a lot of the services that we're offering, an increase, but then in other areas, a decrease in terms of being able to help families really get themselves up and going.
Christine, has your agency looked at what's going on with the childcare industry? How many daycare centers or providers that we've lost who have closed and may not come back? And then as the economy picks up and people start to go to work, they may have a harder time finding quality daycare or the affordability of daycare?
Yeah, we have a childcare coordinator that works under my division, and she is working with the Department of Ed and the childcare coalitions here in Orange County. So we are looking at that, and hopefully, as employment comes back up, we'll be able to help childcare providers get themselves back up. Also, there's also CDSS has formed their own childcare branch now. And so they also are working to see how we can enhance and increase those opportunities also.
And then maybe we'll keep an eye on how cities in the county might be able to use some of their CARES monies to support the childcare industry, business owners to come back. Or
Yes,
just
absolutely. Partnering is going to be really important, I think, as we move into 2021 to really be able to help those individuals.
And as Simon mentioned, if we can get the schools opened so that the children can go back to school, the parent or parents who are staying home to make sure the children are participating in education will be able to also resume work, knowing that their kids are now, taken care of for at least 6 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions?
I was just going to comment, Jesse, this was a great presentation. And I know with SSA, we do some work in employment also, and we're partners here with WDB. So I would love to see if I could get this presentation to my staff that are actually working on this project in terms of just really trying to assist our families be able to get up. But I think the background that you've provided today is instrumental for us in really looking at enhancing services and being able to, do the outreach and things that we need to do to help each of the individuals.
Thank you. Yeah, I just realized I don't have my contact information on the slides because the original deck, there was many of us presenting, but Deborah has all of my information. So Deborah, please feel free to share my work information with folks, and I am happy to do that.
Maybe you can send that when you send the deck. That'd be great.
Will do.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Really appreciate it. I'm going to share that information with my team as well. Okay, so that's the end of our work study session. Do we have any staff or any other board member comments?
If I could have Sandy Barba, who's staff here of the Workforce Development Board, talk briefly about a summer youth program that she's coordinating and getting ready to launch.
Hi, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, great. I will be overseeing the summer stay employment program. We're excited because we were a little bit fearful with COVID and the tradition that we've normally administered this program, but we were able to get creative and adopt and implement, or we will be implementing an online platform that will help with the hybrid version of virtual work experience, providing some of the workshops, the online enrollment, eligibility, intake, all that fun stuff. But we also still want to provide the youth with the opportunity to have physical on-site work experience. So with that said, we are slated to begin enrollment of about 100 youth between the ages of 16 to 19 years old that are Santa Ana residents and have been impacted by COVID, or their family's been impacted. So it could be the gamut. I think, as we all have been hearing, COVID has impacted individuals in various different ways outside of just losing their job, potentially getting sick. We have mental issues that may have come up because of COVID, the isolation for our youth, having to stay home, in addition to utility assistance, the gamut of COVID issues. So it wouldn't just impact them per se, but it would also impact their families. So we are looking for youth that are low income and have been COVID impacted to provide them with services this summer. We are looking to start around May 1st as far as their intake enrollment and starting their workshops. with the actual physical work experience, starting as a tentative date of around June 14th. We are still finalizing all the details because of this new online platform. It is a new way of doing our summer stay employment program. So we are making sure that we cross all our T's and dot all our I's, and that we're taking everything into consideration, given that, yes, we are moving into a more positive position with COVID as far as vaccine, youth going back to school, individuals going back to work, and also employers feeling comfortable with bringing on new individuals into their work site. So we want to make sure we take all of those considerations when implementing this program, and making sure that we address any concerns that the parents might potentially have, that the youth might have. So we are excited. And I did want to propose this to all of you and request, if you do have any interest in receiving any youth for this summer, I would encourage you to contact myself or Deborah. Our youth are going to be between the ages of 16 to 19. So we're looking for some awesome mentors, which I think all of you guys are potential to be, to provide them with some valuable work experience. And we will be paying them for their work experience at your facility. So if you are interested, I'd love to hear from you. Questions?
Sandy, you might have said this, but did you mention it's 100 hours or 100 youth?
100 youth, and the total max hours that we budgeted for is 140, but some of those hours are slated for their workshop, life skills. We want to make sure to prepare them and have them ready prior to them attending the work site, so they have some knowledge of proper work attire, proper communication methods, and all those good things that we'd appreciate at all of our work sites. So we want to make sure that they don't go in there blind, thinking that they can text you with 3-letter words or email you, but really have that professionalism that we want them to have as adults. Great question. Any others?
Sounds like a great program, Sandy.
Thank
And then-
you. We're excited.
And then Carlos would like to give an update as well. Carlos oversees the day-to-day operations of their one-stop center and all other grants and projects that come his way. Carlos?
Morning, everybody. First, let me welcome all the new faces that we're seeing. I'd like to extend an invite not only to the new people, but everyone who would like to get an overview of what the Work Center does. We can give you a call, and maybe we can figure out a way to do either a virtual tour or an in-person tour with the proper social distancing, just to give you an overview of what we do. I think you would benefit, so you can figure out all these new words that sound like English, but you don't really understand what they are when Deborah's doing her report. So feel free to give me a call. Just like everybody has said, the workforce, or the people looking for work, is not really coming back as I thought they were by this time. Our traffic numbers are still low compared to previous to COVID. We're probably down about 80% from where we were at. We figured by this time people would come back because their unemployment benefits would be exhausted, but they're not really coming back. So we're figuring out new creative ways to get out to them. One of the new things that we're offering is that we are offering virtual resume assistance for those folks that are fearful of coming in. We can have your resume reviewed online by one of our professionals. If anybody would like that kind of service, feel free to call our main line at 714-565-2600. And we'll be happy to do that. And last but not least, some of the services that we are providing to the community is for those folks that are not able to connect via the internet, either because they don't have the service or they don't have a computer, or they can't use a computer. We are assisting folks in completing some of completing applications for some of the services that are out there, like unemployment insurance and rental assistance. Right now, the city is having a big program that's being promoted where people that are behind on their rent is given some assistance. I think up to about $5,000 in rental assistance. They have to be behind on their rent, and there is an eligibility attached to it, and you can apply online on the city's website under the COVID resources tab. But if you don't have a computer, you can come to the work center and we'll help you fill out that application. Again, by calling our main line and setting an appointment at 714-565-2600. So thank you so much, Deborah. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Stacy had to leave for a meeting. So is there any board member comments or announcements?
I had just a couple of things on the EDD side. EDD is currently talking at the executive level regarding reopening the AJCCs and our services. I know I spoke with our Anaheim AJCC yesterday. We talked about, currently there are no EDD staff going into the Anaheim AJCC. But that may change. Hopefully by April or May, we will begin having staff go back into the Anaheim AJCC. Here in Garden Grove, of course, we're still taking its appointments only through the county. We do have RESEAs, the reemployment assessment interviews coming up. That's beginning to be calendared, probably looking at June to start those, and they will all be virtual reemployment assessment services. So including a YouTube opening video and individually with the individual reps, employment reps having the individual sessions. The only thing there is we're trying to figure out how we're going to make sure that the partners are included so that those, because they're a big part of it as well. And the referral services or handoff from the RESEA claimant to the WIAO doesn't get impacted during that virtual process.
So just a little background, the current pandemic economy is so much different from recessions of the past, where our doors would be open all the time, if not longer hours, and we would literally have people out the door coming in to file for unemployment insurance, having their questions answered. All our staff would be at the front desk serving the public. Resource room would be packed. Because of the pandemic and the the impact to our health, we had to go virtual. And so the state has been, while they've not been here personally at the front desk talking to people, they have been answering the phones. We've had a separate side number that we've shared with the community to call if they couldn't get through on the 800 numbers for their unemployment claims. And Dennis's team at both Santa Ana, Anaheim, and Orange County have tried to answer all those calls and help people with their unemployment claims. So it has been different from a staff perspective that they've not been able to help, which has really hurt our team because we're so used to helping people immediately and being able to touch them and speak to them one-on-one, and having to do it by phone or by Zoom. It's made things harder and slower and frustrating. So we're glad to hear EDD is going to start to reemploy staff to open up the front doors, but we hesitate a bit because we know the community, has had a lot of difficult times with unemployment insurance. So we're prepared for them to be unhappy as well.
And Deborah, we actually, there's discussion about the UI navigator. In our offices, we've typically had a UI navigator type person who gives limited support in that area, but there is discussion about how that can look moving forward, and that's something that we're discussing now as well. I think our new agency director wants us to support in a different way with unemployment insurance, simple items.
And also early in the pandemic, the state took 95% of Dennis's staff and put them into the unemployment insurance side. So
They have a little knowledge now.
They have a lot of knowledge now and can help our public navigate unemployment benefits.
Yeah.
So
But
thank you.
thank you, Deborah. That's the update I wanted to share with everyone now.
Any other announcements or updates? Hearing none, thank you all. To our 4 new board members, I will be calling you to schedule one-on-ones. And if we can, we'd love to have you come to the work center and meet Carlos and give a tour so you can understand the one-stop system, and we'll start to integrate you and get you up to speed. So I appreciate everyone's time. Our next scheduled meeting is in May. I'll send out agenda, or I'll send out meeting notices so that you can populate your calendars going forward. And with that said, happy Thursday. Thank you all.